Les accents français. Those strange little symbols on top of the letters. Accents are an essential part of the French language. You cannot leave them out. They are not something that is done by choice. They are actually essential to the spelling of the word, so much so that if you leave them out, the word can actually completely change meaning. So you are going to want every single time you see a new French word to make sure you know if there are any accents, if so, which ones they are, and what they will do to the pronunciation of the word once the accents are there. And that's what this chart should help you with. For some reason, the transferring of this page into my notes file came out really blurry. I believe in your notes it should be really nice looking and normal, but this one is not, so I'm sorry. The actual parts you have to fill in, those parts look great. It's just that the basic part that you already have does not look so great. So bear with me on that. So the first accent we're going to see is called the accent aigu, and I know it's hard to see on my notes, but hopefully on yours it's a little bit better. The accent aigu is going to start at the bottom and go up towards the top. It will make your voice go up, and the E will sound like the English letter A. So in our example is in the word enchanté, which means nice to meet you. You've probably heard it before when people try to pretend to be French or try to sound fancy, right? Oh, enchanté. If the accent was not there, the word would just be enchant. But with the accent, we're going to make that E sound like A, have an A sound to it, so it becomes enchanté. Our next accent is going to be called the accent grave. And this is similar to the accent aigu, but it goes the opposite direction. So it starts up at the top and then goes down to the bottom. It will make your voice go down, and the E will sound like the E in the English word jet. So this word here, can you guess what it means? If you guess zebra, you're right. Has an accent grave, and it's going to sound like this. Zèbre. If the accent grave was not there, it would be zèbre, but now it's going to sound like the E in jet, so our first syllable is going to be ze, zèbre. Our next accent is called the accent cédille, and it is the little curly Q that goes underneath the C, and the reason for that is that it's going to make a C sound like an S. So the best example, the one that you've probably seen multiple times, especially at the top of this page, is the word français, right? That means French. If our accent was not there, that word would be franquais, which is not the same and does not sound like a very French word. So you want to be saying français. Anytime you see that cédille, it's going to make you change that C to sound like an S. Our next accent is called the accent circonflexe, and it kind of looks like a little house. You can see over the O here, it just goes up to the top, or up to the middle, I guess I should say, and then down the other side. This does not change the pronunciation in any of the words. It actually is an indication of a change in spelling from Old French, and it can sometimes mean that there used to be another letter there that they took out. So our example here is the word hôtel, which, can you guess what that means? It's hotel. Well done. And the accent circonflexe usually indicates that there used to be an S there, so the word would have been hostel, essentially, which is still a word in English and is very similar to a hotel, just happens to be cheaper. So sometimes you may find words in French that have an accent circonflexe, and if you put an S in there after the letter that has the accent on top of it, it may help you to figure out what that word means if you can't figure it out just by looking at it. Hotel is clearly one where you can just look at it and know what it means. And then the last accent mark is called the tréma, and it's the two little dots over, in this case, over the E. And what that's going to do is separate the vowel sounds in a word. So in our example word here, if we did not have the tréma, it would just be pronounced me. It'd be one syllable and that would be it. But in this case, because we've got a tréma in there, it's now going to be maïs, right? Do you hear those two different sounds there? Maïs. Another example of this is the word Noël, right? You may know someone named Noel, or you may know or have an idea that it actually is the French word for Christmas. And because of that, there is a tréma over this, the E, so it becomes N-O-E-L. Normally that word would just be Noël, but with our tréma in there, it's going to become Noël, Noël, or in this case, maïs, which is how we're going to pronounce that. So one quick way to try and help you remember the difference between the accent aigu and the accent grave is if you imagined that there was a clock drawn around our E. So it started with 12 and then went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get the picture. If you imagine a clock, the best way to remember this is that you're gonna say to yourself, the accent aigu goes to the 2. Let me draw a little clock in here. Make this a little bit easier, perhaps. So if you were looking here and you had a little clock, ooh, by hand, this does not look very good, but we're trying. Okay, that does not go to that too. So here's your 12, and your 1, and your 2. There, that's close enough. You get what I mean. So if you were looking at this, you would say to yourself, the accent aigu, which is this one, goes to the 2. And that is probably one of the best ways to remember which accent is the aigu versus which one is the grave, because you will see them mostly over E's, and they are basically the same accent, just flipped around. So hopefully this helped you a little bit with accents. There's some activities for you to do to help you identify some of those. And if you ever forget what they do to sounds, that's okay. You can look back at this sheet to find out.